The bitter seed Vincent Moreau stood at his office window, staring at the invitation in his hand. The Peninsula Grand Hotel's annual charity gala was the event of the season, drawing the city's elite into its gilded ballroom. His technology company, Vertex Solutions, had become a primary sponsor this year, a testament to his meteoric rise since the divorce. The golden lettering caught the afternoon sun, much like the wedding band he'd thrown into the Pacific 2 years ago. "Mr. Moreau, the board is waiting in the conference room," his assistant Julian said from the doorway. Vincent nodded without turning. "Tell them I'll be 5 minutes." The door closed and Vincent returned to his thoughts. Sophia would be there. He'd confirmed it through his contacts on the charity board. Sophia Torres, once Sophia Moreau, the elementary school teacher who'd believed in him when he was nothing but ambition and coffee-stained business plans. The woman who'd supposedly left him for a wealthier prospect when his first venture failed, only to disappear completely when his second company exploded into success. At least, that was the story he'd constructed in his mind, fueled by whispers and assumptions during their breakup. He never gave her the chance to explain. Pride wouldn't allow it. Vincent straightened his tie and practiced the smile he'd perfected in boardrooms. Charismatic but calculated. The plan had formed gradually over weeks, crystallizing into something he couldn't ignore. A public reunion, an invitation to the stage to honor her volunteer work, followed by subtle revelations about her past opportunism. Nothing crude. Vincent was too sophisticated for that, but precise, devastating. "The best revenge is served at room temperature," he muttered to himself, with everyone watching. Later that evening, Vincent sat across from his closest friend, Thomas Blackwood, in a downtown restaurant. Thomas had known them both before everything fell apart. "You're planning something," Thomas said, swirling his whiskey. "I recognize that look." "I'm simply attending a charity event my company is sponsoring," Vincent replied. Thomas set his glass down. "Sophia will be there." It wasn't a question. Vincent's jaw tightened slightly. "Vincent, it's been 2 years. Whatever happened between you two, she disappeared, Thomas. When I needed her most, she vanished. Then when Vertex took off, suddenly I was worth something again. But she never came back." Vincent's voice remained low, controlled. "I just want her to acknowledge what she did." Thomas leaned forward. "Have you ever considered there might be another explanation?" Sophia wasn't the type to. "People change when money's involved," Vincent cut in. "I learned that lesson thoroughly." The week before the gala passed in a blur of preparations. Vincent reviewed the guest list repeatedly, ensuring his path would cross with Sophia's. He rehearsed casual encounters in his mind, imagining her face when she realized her past wasn't as buried as she thought. The night before the event, Vincent stood in his penthouse, a glass of bourbon in hand. On his desk lay a dossier, every detail of Sophia's life since their split, where she taught now, which philanthropic causes she supported, the small apartment in the arts district where she lived, but strangely something was missing. No social media presence, no relationship status. It was as if she'd carved out a private world away from prying eyes. For a fleeting moment, doubt flickered across Vincent's consciousness. Then he remembered the coldness of his empty home after she left, the pitying glances from colleagues, the nights spent wondering why he hadn't been enough. Tomorrow night would bring closure. Vincent would finally reclaim the narrative. What he couldn't possibly know was that tomorrow would indeed change everything, just not in the way he had planned. Unexpected revelations. The Peninsula Grand Hotel's ballroom glowed with chandeliers and the soft murmur of high society. Vincent Moreau moved through the crowd with practiced ease, accepting congratulations on Vertex's success while his eyes continually scanned the entrance. Each time the doors opened, his heart quickened, then settled back to its steady rhythm when Sophia failed to appear. "Quite the turnout," Thomas commented, appearing at Vincent's side with 2 flutes of champagne. "The Children's Education Fund should receive a substantial donation tonight." Vincent accepted the glass. "That's the goal, isn't it?" "Making a difference." Thomas studied his friend's face. "Is that really why you're here?" Before Vincent could respond, a ripple of delighted murmurs swept through the crowd near the entrance. Vincent turned, and the champagne nearly slipped from his grasp. Sophia stood in the doorway, radiant in a simple emerald dress that highlighted her warm brown skin and the elegant curve of her neck. Her dark hair was shorter now, framing her face in gentle waves. But it wasn't her beauty that struck Vincent speechless. It was the three small figures clustered around her. Two identical boys with curly hair and a girl with a cascade of dark ringlets. All approximately 4 years old stood holding her hands. They wore coordinating outfits, the boys in tiny navy blue suits and the girl in a matching navy dress with a satin ribbon. Vincent's breath caught in his throat. The shape of their eyes, the set of their jaws, they were unmistakably his. "Did you know?" Vincent whispered, unable to tear his gaze away. Thomas followed his stare and inhaled sharply. "My God, no, I had no idea." Sophia hadn't noticed him yet. She knelt down, straightening one boy's bow tie while saying something that made all three children giggle. The sound carried across the room, innocent and pure, cutting through the sophisticated ambiance like sunlight through stained glass. "Triplets," Thomas said quietly. "That explains why she disappeared so suddenly." Vincent's carefully constructed plan crumbled around him. The speech he'd prepared, the subtle barbs designed to expose her supposed greed, all of it dissolved in the face of this revelation. These children would be approximately 4 years old, conceived just before their relationship imploded, before he'd refused to listen to her explanation, before he'd constructed a narrative that protected his wounded pride. "I need to speak with her," Vincent said, starting forward. Thomas gripped his arm. "Think carefully about your next move. Whatever you had planned—" "I know." Vincent's voice sounded hollow even to his own ears. Across the room, the charity director, Francesca Wells, was greeting Sophia warmly. Vincent watched as Francesca bent down to speak to the children, who responded with shy smiles. One of the boys, the one with a small birthmark near his temple, pointed toward the stage where Vincent was scheduled to speak later. A cold realization washed over him. Sophia had prepared them to see him tonight. Vincent made his way toward them, weaving through clusters of guests. Sophia spotted him when he was halfway across the room. Her smile faltered, replaced by a guarded expression he'd never seen before. She whispered something to the children, who looked up simultaneously in his direction. 3 pairs of eyes, exact replicas of his own, studied him with innocent curiosity. The little girl tugged at Sophia's dress and whispered a question. Sophia nodded, her gaze never leaving Vincent's approach. "Sophia," Vincent said when he finally stood before them, her name feeling both familiar and foreign on his tongue. "Vincent." Her voice was steady. "It's been a while." The children stared up at him with undisguised fascination. The little girl stepped forward, extending a small hand encased in a white glove. "I'm Charlotte," she announced with surprising poise for a 4-year-old. "These are my brothers, William and James. Mama says you're the man who makes computers think." Vincent knelt down automatically, shaking her tiny hand. "That's one way of putting it." The boys moved forward too, emboldened by their sister's courage. "Do you really own a whole building?" asked one. William or James. Vincent couldn't tell which. "Several, actually," Vincent replied, his voice softening instinctively. Sophia placed protective hands on the children's shoulders. "Why don't you 3 go with Miss Francesca to see the dessert table?" Just looking, not touching until after dinner. When the children had been led away, Sophia faced Vincent, arms crossed defensively. "I didn't expect you to approach us so directly." "Didn't expect?" Vincent struggled to keep his voice level. "Sophia, those children are mine, aren't they?" Her eyes flashed. "Yes, Vincent. Those are your children. Children you never knew about because you refused to speak to me after you decided I'd betrayed you. Children I've raised alone while building a life that would give them everything they need. Why didn't you tell me?" Vincent demanded, though he already knew the answer. "I tried. I called your office 17 times that month. I sent letters that came back unopened. By the time I learned I was carrying triplets, you'd made it abundantly clear you wanted nothing to do with me." Her voice remained low, mindful of nearby guests. "After that, I made a choice to protect them from a father who could think so little of their mother." Vincent's carefully maintained facade began to crack. The vengeance he'd nursed for years suddenly seemed petty and misplaced. Before he could respond, the charity director tapped a microphone, calling the gala to attention. It was time for the speeches, including his. As Vincent walked toward the stage, his mind spun with revelations. Everything he'd believed, every justification for his bitterness, was built on a foundation that had just been pulled from beneath him, and now 3 innocent children with his eyes watched him climb the stairs to address the crowd. His planned speech, with its veiled references and subtle opportunity to humiliate Sophia, lay heavy in his pocket like a stone. Instead, as he looked out over the crowd and found 4 pairs of eyes watching him, 1 wary, 3 curious, Vincent Moreau faced a defining moment that would alter the course of many lives. Shattered masks. The microphone hummed softly as Vincent straightened his shoulders, facing the expectant crowd. His prepared speech burned in his pocket like contraband. 3 small faces peered up at him from the front row where Francesca had seated them for the presentation. Sophia stood slightly behind, her posture rigid, eyes never leaving his face. "Good evening," Vincent began, his voice surprisingly steady. "I had a carefully prepared address about Vertex Solutions' commitment to education and our corporate vision for the future." He paused, fingers gripping the podium. The teleprompter displayed the first lines of his original speech, but Vincent ignored it. "But tonight has reminded me that our greatest contributions aren't the ones planned in boardrooms or drafted by PR teams. They're the ones we make unknowingly, through the ripples our actions and inactions create in others' lives." From the corner of his eye, Vincent saw Thomas straighten in surprise. Sophia's expression remained carefully neutral. "Our charity tonight supports children who need educational opportunities. Children who deserve every advantage we can provide them. Children who need adults to put aside their differences and make decisions based on what's best for the next generation." Vincent took a breath. "I've recently been reminded that legacy isn't measured in market share or profit margins. It's measured in the eyes of those who will carry forward the world we create." Charlotte, the little girl whose hand he'd shaken, waved enthusiastically from her seat. Without planning to, Vincent smiled and waved back. Something in his chest loosened. "Vertex Solutions will be matching all donations made tonight without limit," Vincent announced, causing a stir among the board members in attendance. "And we'll be establishing a permanent endowment for early childhood education in underserved communities." The applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Vincent barely heard it. His eyes found Sophia's, and for the first time that evening her guard seemed to falter. Confusion replaced caution in her expression. Vincent concluded his remarks and descended the stage, moving through congratulatory handshakes in a daze. When he reached the area where Sophia and the children had been sitting, he found only Francesca. "They went to the garden terrace," she said with a knowing smile. The little ones were getting restless during the speeches. "Impressive announcement, by the way. I didn't know about the endowment." "Neither did I until about 3 minutes ago," Vincent admitted. The garden terrace was illuminated by strings of soft lights. Vincent found them near the fountain, the boys throwing pennies into the water while Sophia sat on a bench watching, the little girl curled against her side, half asleep. "Make a wish?" one of the boys instructed his brother as he tossed another coin. "I already did," the other replied. "I wished for a puppy." "You're not supposed to tell." "Now it won't come true." Vincent approached slowly, not wanting to intrude on the moment. Sophia saw him first, her hand instinctively tightening around Charlotte's shoulder. "That was quite a speech," she said quietly. Vincent sat on a nearby bench. "I had a different one prepared?" "I know. I imagined what you might say all week." Sophia stroked Charlotte's hair. "That's why I brought them. I thought, if you saw them first, if you knew the truth before you spoke, you were protecting them again," Vincent realized. "From me," Sophia didn't deny it. "They've asked about their father. Children notice these things. Empty spaces at school events, questions from classmates. I've told them their father is a brilliant man who builds amazing things, but lives far away." The boys had noticed him now and approached cautiously, still clutching pennies. "Are you really our dad?" The one with the birthmark, James, asked bluntly. The question hung in the air between them. Sophia tensed visibly. "Yes," Vincent said simply. "I am." "Then why don't you live with us?" William asked. Vincent glanced at Sophia, whose expression remained carefully controlled. "Sometimes grown-ups make complicated decisions that don't make much sense," he explained. "And sometimes they make mistakes. Like when I broke Mama's flower vase," James offered helpfully. Despite everything, Vincent laughed. "Bigger than that, but similar. You make a mistake, and then you have to figure out how to fix it." Charlotte stirred against Sophia's side, blinking sleepily. "Are you going to fix your mistake?" she asked with a child's directness. The question pierced Vincent like a blade. He met Sophia's gaze over the children's heads, seeing in her eyes the hurt he'd caused, the years he'd missed, and perhaps, though he might be imagining it, a fragile thread of possibility. "I'd like to try," he said quietly. Later, after the children had been escorted to Sophia's car by Francesca and a hotel attendant, Vincent and Sophia stood alone in the garden. "What happens now?" Vincent asked. Sophia wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders against the night air. "I don't know. This isn't how I expected tonight to go. Did you ever intend to tell me about them?" The question had burned in him all evening. "Yes," Sophia admitted. "When they turned 5. I'd decided they were old enough to understand, and I didn't want to lie to them anymore." Vincent processed this. "I had convinced myself you left me for someone with more potential, that you saw me failing and cut your losses." Sophia's laugh held no humor. "Is that what you told yourself?" "I left because you became someone I didn't recognize. When your first company started struggling, you shut me out. You worked 18-hour days and came home angry and distant. When I tried to talk to you about the future, about us, about building a family, you accused me of not believing in you." The truth of her words stung. "And then when I found out I was pregnant with triplets, no less, I tried to reach you, but you'd already decided what kind of person I was." "Sophia, No, Vincent." "I'm not finished." Her voice remained low but intense. "Do you have any idea what it's like to carry and deliver 3 children alone? To raise them without family nearby while teaching full-time and stretching every dollar? To explain why everyone else's daddy comes to school events?" Vincent had no answer. His carefully constructed narrative of betrayal lay in ruins around him, revealing a truth far more damning to his character than he'd ever imagined. "I don't expect anything from you," Sophia continued, softer now, "but they deserve to know their father. If you want to be in their lives, it needs to be consistent. No disappearing when it becomes inconvenient." "I want to know them," Vincent said, surprised by the certainty in his voice. "All of them, including the person their mother has become." Sophia studied him carefully. "We'll start slowly, for their sake." As they walked back toward the ballroom, Vincent realized that the revenge he'd planned had been a poison he'd been drinking himself, one sip at a time, for years, and perhaps tonight was the first step toward an antidote he never knew he needed. Bridges in the dark, the playground bustled with activity, children's laughter rising above the city noise. Vincent sat on a bench, watching as William and James tackled the jungle gym while Charlotte organized an elaborate game of hopscotch with 2 other girls. It had been 3 weeks since the gala, and this was his 4th supervised visit with the children. "They have so much energy," Vincent commented as Sophia handed him a coffee from the nearby cart. "Triple the children, triple the energy," Sophia replied, settling beside him but maintaining a careful distance. "Charlotte crashed for 14 hours after your aquarium visit last weekend." Vincent smiled at the memory. Charlotte had insisted on reading every informational plaque, asking questions Vincent often couldn't answer. James had been fascinated by the sharks, while William spent nearly an hour mesmerized by the jellyfish display. 3 different personalities sharing the same features. It was still surreal to him. "I've been thinking," Vincent began, "about their schooling." Sophia tensed slightly. "What about it?" "The private academy near my office has an exceptional program. They have small class sizes, specialized teachers for gifted students." "Stop." Sophia's voice was firm. "They're enrolled in the school where I teach. Their friends are there. Their routine is established. But with my resources, they could have advantages." "This is exactly what I was afraid of," Sophia sighed. watching as James helped a younger child up after a fall. You can't just sweep in after 4 years and rearrange their lives because you can afford to. Vincent wanted to argue, but swallowed his response, recognizing the defensiveness rising within him, the same reaction that had destroyed their relationship before. Instead, he asked, "What are you afraid of exactly?" Sophia considered the question, her gaze following the children. "That you'll try to rewrite our story without understanding the chapters you missed. That you'll use your wealth to compensate for absence. That you'll confuse them about who they are and where they belong." Her honesty struck him. "I don't want to disrupt their lives. I just want to be part of them. Then be present. Listen. Learn who they are before trying to reshape them." Across the playground, Charlotte had spotted them talking and was now racing toward them, dark curls bouncing. "Daddy! Come see my hopscotch pattern!" she called. The word daddy still sent a jolt through Vincent's system, equal parts joy and regret. He followed Charlotte to her elaborate chalk creation, listening intently as she explained the complex rules she'd invented. Later that evening, after the children had been taken home, Vincent found himself driving to the small arts district where Sophia's apartment building stood. He'd never been inside, their interactions carefully structured in neutral public locations. But tonight, something pulled him there. He parked across the street, observing the modest 3-story building. Lights glowed in various windows, lives being lived behind each one. On the second floor, a window framed a scene he could just make out. Sophia reading to the children, all 3 crowded on what appeared to be a small sofa. Even from a distance, he could see Charlotte's animated gestures as she apparently interrupted the story with questions or comments. Vincent's phone buzzed with an email from his executive team. Acquisition, paperwork that needed immediate attention. For the first time in years, he silenced his phone without hesitation. The company that had consumed his life, that he'd built as proof of his worth after Sophia left him, suddenly seemed less urgent than the tableau framed in that distant window. As if sensing his presence, Sophia glanced up from the book and toward the window. Their eyes met across the distance, and Vincent realized he'd been spotted. Embarrassed at being caught essentially spying, he raised a hand in acknowledgement. After a moment's hesitation, Sophia nodded slightly before drawing the curtains. The message was clear. Not yet. The following week brought a professional crisis at Vertex, a major security vulnerability discovered in their flagship product. Vincent spent 3 days in round-the-clock emergency meetings, missing his scheduled park visit with the children. When he finally emerged from the crisis, he found 6 missed calls from Sophia and twice as many text messages, the tone evolving from concern to disappointment to anger. Exhausted, Vincent drove to her apartment building rather than calling. This time he climbed the stairs and knocked on her door. Sophia answered, surprise evident in her expression. "I should have called first," Vincent said immediately. "The children are already asleep," Sophia replied, not inviting him in. "I know. I wanted to apologize to you for disappearing this week." Sophia's posture softened slightly. "Work emergency?" "Yes, but that's not an excuse. I promised to be at the park, and I broke that promise." Vincent ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "This is exactly what you were worried about, isn't it? That I'd disappear when being a father became inconvenient? Did you figure that out on your own, or did Thomas knock some sense into you?" A hint of the old Sophia, the one who never let him take himself too seriously, showed in her expression. Both, actually. He suggested I was returning to old patterns. Vincent hesitated. "The children. Were they upset?" William cried. "Charlotte said you probably had an important meeting. James asked if you'd forgotten about us." Sophia's honesty was unflinching. The knowledge twisted in Vincent's gut. "I'd like to make it up to them." "And to you? How do you plan to do that?" Sophia's question wasn't challenging, but genuinely curious. "I don't know yet, but I'm learning that some things are worth rearranging my life for." Vincent met her gaze directly. "I've spent 2 years building a company to prove something to the world, and to you, I realize now. But the irony is, none of it matters compared to what I missed at home." Sophia studied him for a long moment. "The children made you pictures when you didn't show up. They're on the refrigerator. Would you like to come in and see them? The invitation, small but significant, felt like the first real bridge across the chasm between them. Inside the apartment, Vincent was struck by its warmth. Modest in size but thoughtfully arranged, every corner revealed evidence of the family's life together. Artwork displayed proudly, bookshelves overflowing with children's literature, a dining table bearing the marks of countless craft projects. This was a home in the truest sense, built with love rather than wealth. The refrigerator gallery showcased their artistic efforts. William had drawn what appeared to be Vincent in a superhero cape. James had created an elaborate rocket ship with Daddy's Space Company written in wobbly letters. Charlotte's contribution was more sophisticated, a family portrait, with all 5 of them holding hands in front of what looked suspiciously like Vincent's downtown office building. She has your attention to detail, Sophia commented, noticing him studying Charlotte's drawing. And your artistic talent, Vincent replied softly. They stood in silence, the magnitude of what had been lost and what might still be recovered hanging between them. Vincent realized with sudden clarity that the revenge he'd planned at the gala wouldn't have hurt Sophia nearly as much as he'd hurt himself by missing these precious years. I'm reducing my role at Vertex, Vincent said abruptly. I've asked the board to start searching for a new CEO. Sophia's eyebrows rose. Because of the children? Because I built a life around proving my worth through work, and I missed what really mattered. Vincent touched the corner of Charlotte's drawing. I don't want to miss any more. For the first time since their reunion, Sophia's smile reached her eyes. They'll be excited to see you at breakfast. Vincent looked at her in confusion. Breakfast? It's nearly midnight, Vincent. You look like you haven't slept in days, and the couch pulls out. Stay. She held up a hand when he began to respond. Just to sleep. For the children's sake. As Vincent settled onto the pull-out sofa later, listening to the quiet breathing of his family behind bedroom doors, he realized that sometimes bridges are built in the dark, one small, brave step at a time. Tomorrow's promise. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating the living room of Sophia's apartment. Vincent stirred on the pull-out sofa, momentarily disoriented by unfamiliar surroundings. The sound of whispered conversation drew his attention to 3 small figures standing in the hallway, watching him with undisguised fascination. Is he really staying? William whispered, not quite softly enough. Mama said just for breakfast, Charlotte replied with the authority of an eldest child, even if only by minutes. James simply stared, clutching a worn stuffed elephant. Vincent sat up, running a hand through his hair. Good morning, he offered. The greeting broke the spell. William rushed forward first, launching himself onto the mattress with the fearlessness of childhood. Did you sleep over? Are you staying forever? Can we have pancakes? Charlotte approached more cautiously, assessing the situation with eyes too perceptive for her age. Your suit is wrinkled, she observed. James remained in the doorway until Vincent smiled directly at him. Then, as if making a monumental decision, he crossed the room and silently offered his elephant. This is Humphrey, Charlotte explained. James lets people hold him when they're having a difficult time. He thinks you must be sad because you're sleeping on the couch instead of in a bed. Vincent accepted the elephant with appropriate solemnity. Thank you, James. Humphrey is excellent company. From the kitchen doorway, Sophia watched the interaction, still in pajamas with a coffee mug in hand. Something in her expression had softened since last night. I promise pancakes, she announced. Who's helping? The morning unfolded in domestic chaos. Flour spilled across countertops, excessive chocolate chips smuggled into batter, syrup inevitably finding its way onto elbows and chins. Vincent discovered he was hopelessly outmatched by 3 4-year-olds who knew exactly how to navigate their mother's kitchen and routines. You need practice, Sophia commented, handing him a dishcloth as he attempted to clean William's sticky hands. I have a lot to learn, Vincent agreed, watching as Charlotte methodically separated her pancake into precise triangular segments. After breakfast, the children dispersed to dress for their Saturday activities. Ballet for Charlotte, soccer for the boys. Vincent helped clear the table, falling into an unexpected rhythm with Sophia. They have a recital and game next weekend, Sophia mentioned as she rinsed plates. Charlotte's been practicing her routine for weeks. The boys' team hasn't won a game yet, but they're enthusiastic. I'd like to be there, Vincent said. For both. All day. Sophia handed him a dripping plate. They'd like that too. A companionable silence settled between them as they finished the dishes. It reminded Vincent of Sunday mornings years ago, before ambition and misunderstanding had driven them apart. I meant what I said last night, Vincent said finally. About stepping back from Vertex. Sophia turned to face him fully. I never wanted you to choose between your work and family. That wasn't why I left. I know that now, but I need to choose differently going forward. Vincent leaned against the counter. I've been thinking about something Charlotte said at the playground, about wanting to build robots that help people. She has incredible ideas, Sophia. All three of them do. They get that from both of us, Sophia replied. Your vision, my practicality. I want to be part of that development. Not just weekend visits and special occasions. Vincent hesitated. I bought a house. In this neighborhood, actually. 3 blocks from here. Sophia's eyebrows rose. You did what? It's not presumptuous, Vincent clarified quickly. It's not about moving you or changing the children's routines. It's about me being close, available, present for school pickups and sick days and ordinary Tuesdays. When did you even have time to buy a house? Sophia asked, bewildered. The same day I missed the park visit. I realized that if I was serious about being in their lives, really in their lives, I needed to be here, not expecting them to fit into my downtown existence. Before Sophia could respond, the children reappeared in various states of readiness. William had his shirt on backward. James had managed to put both feet into one leg of his pants. Only Charlotte was properly dressed, though she held a hairbrush expectantly toward Sophia. French braid, please, she requested. The next hour dissolved into the logistical complexity of preparing 3 children for different activities. Vincent found himself kneeling before James, gently correcting his pants situation while explaining the concept of 1 leg per hole. Sophia braided Charlotte's hair while simultaneously directing William on proper shirt orientation. By the time they reached the car, Vincent had developed a profound respect for what Sophia managed daily. As he helped buckle car seats, a skill he was determinedly, if awkwardly, acquiring, he caught Sophia watching him with an unreadable expression. What? He asked. You're not what I expected, she admitted. When I saw you at the gala, I thought you'd be the same self-absorbed workaholic who wouldn't listen 4 years ago? Something like that. Sophia closed the passenger door and lowered her voice. I spent years being angry at you for not being there during the pregnancy, for missing their birth, for all the midnight feedings and first steps and words. Vincent absorbed her words, the weight of his absence tangible between them. But watching you with them now, Sophia continued. You're really trying. Not trying, Vincent corrected. Doing, being. I can't change the past 4 years. But I can be fully present for the next 40. The declaration hung in the air, larger than the immediate conversation about carpools and weekend schedules. Sophia held his gaze for a long moment before nodding slightly. We should go or Charlotte will be late for ballet. She hates being late. Like her mother, Vincent noted with a small smile. Like her father, Sophia countered, the first acknowledgement that the children had inherited traits from them both. 6 months later, the neighborhood block party found Vincent manning a grill in the backyard of his new home. The modest house, while considerably smaller than his downtown penthouse, had rapidly transformed into a second home base for the children. William and James chased each other through sprinklers on the lawn, while Charlotte supervised a complicated sidewalk chalk mural with neighborhood friends. Thomas arrived bearing an elaborate dessert. Domestic life suits you, he observed, watching Vincent flip burgers with surprising competence. Who would have thought? Vincent agreed. Across the yard, Sophia arranged salads on a picnic table. She caught Vincent's eye and smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression that still made his heart skip. Their relationship had evolved cautiously over months of co-parenting, rediscovering each other as the people they'd become rather than clinging to memories of who they'd been. Have you asked her yet? Thomas inquired quietly. Vincent patted his pocket where a small velvet box rested. Tonight, after the fireworks. It's not about reclaiming what we had before. It's about building something new. Something better. As if on cue, James raced over, waterlogged and grinning. Daddy, William says there's treasure buried in the sandbox. Can we dig it all up, please? Archaeological excavation after lunch, Vincent promised, ruffling the boy's wet hair. The afternoon stretched into evening. Neighbors came and went, children formed alliances and rivalries that lasted exactly as long as their games required. Vincent observed it all with a sense of wonder. This ordinary, extraordinary life he'd nearly missed entirely. After sunset, the promised fireworks began in the nearby park. The children watched from a blanket spread on the grass, their faces illuminated by bursts of color against the darkening sky. Vincent and Sophia sat behind them, close enough that their shoulders touched. They're amazing, Vincent said quietly, watching as Charlotte explained the science of fireworks to her brothers, reciting facts she'd memorized from a library book. They are, Sophia agreed. But they need consistency, security. Two parents who can model what healthy partnership looks like, whether or not— I want that too, Vincent interrupted. All of it. With you? He reached for her hand in the darkness. 4 years ago, pride and misunderstanding had driven them apart. Now, 3 small miracles had given them a second chance neither had expected. I'm not asking for your answer tonight, Vincent continued, removing the ring box from his pocket and placing it between them. Just your consideration. We can take all the time you need. Sophia studied the unopened box, then lifted her gaze to the children, their faces tilted skyward in wonder. We've wasted enough time already, don't you think? She asked, turning back to him with eyes that reflected both fireworks and future possibilities. As Charlotte pointed excitedly at a particularly spectacular burst of light, calling, Look, Mama! Look, Daddy! Vincent realized that the bitter seed planted years ago had somehow, against all odds, blossomed into something beautiful, not despite the pain, but because of how they'd grown through it. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, the logistics of blending households, the continuing balance of careers and family, the inevitable complications of raising 3 strong-willed children. But for tonight, beneath summer stars and celebration lights, Vincent understood that true redemption wasn't found in revenge or success or even forgiveness, but in the promise of showing up day after ordinary day for the extraordinary gift of family.